All right, I have with me Jeff Dee, the host of the Nonprofit Podcast. He's also the former host of the Atheist Experience. He's a snazzy dancer, a snappy dresser. Jeff, welcome.
Hi, Kevin.
Yeah, Jeff, they just love you here in the Valley.
Oh, boy.
Jeff, I think a lot of our audience actually knows you, but there might be a couple out there that don't know who Jeff Dee is. Would you be so kind to give us what I would say the Reader's Digest version of who Jeff Dee is?
Oh, boy. This is for an atheist audience, right?
Mostly.
You've kind of covered it. I'm a member of the atheist community of Austin, Texas. Have been for decades. I was not one of the very first people on their public access television show, The Atheist Experience, but became a co-host of that and later a host after it had been going for a little while. And then I got tired of fighting the red tape at the public access studio, and so I suggested that the atheist community of Austin start one of these newfangled podcast things, because we could do that without having to deal with anybody else's restrictions, and we started that. And then I left both shows for a while, pursuing other things. I had moved a little bit toward the outside of the Austin area, and it just became more difficult. But then the Nonprofits podcast went on hiatus and didn't come back for a while, and that made me sad. So I got back in touch with the group, and I said, "You let me spearhead the return of that show," and I did that, and we've been back on the air now for 2-3 years.
Yeah. Well, I must admit, I'm a fan of the show, and I'll actually even say the nonprofit is actually one of the influence that actually got us to start this podcast here. And actually, I sent you guys a letter a couple of years ago, but I can't expect you guys to remember that. But great work on the show.
Thank you.
Jeff, you have a no-nonsense kind of approach. In this age of Firebrand versus Diplomat, you consider yourself successful.
But I don't know, what's the standard of success?
That's a good question indeed.
I say what I think, and I mean, that's all anybody can do, and either people are going to agree or not, and that's fine. I guess they haven't kicked me off the shows, so that's a measure of success. Yeah,
you're still calling you in, so I guess that's a good idea.
The shows are not about converting people to atheism either, so we don't really have that metric to go by, and it would be hard to tell how well we had done even if that was one of our goals. So I don't know. I just call it the way I see it. Fair
enough. Some people out there are actually saying that you might have given Matt Dillahunty his style. You care to comment about that?
I have no comment on that. Okay. Matt is his own person, and he can do things his way, and that's fine.
Well, I must admit, I really love your no-nonsense approach to things. I really love that. I admire that about you. You guys,
all right.
Well, here in Canada we're a bit way more PC, I guess, than maybe you guys are down there in Texas. You guys in Texas, you're on the front line of atheism. So what's the situation down there? I mean, we live in very different countries.
Oh boy. Well, our government, state government, is in the clutches of right-wing fundamentalists, or at least politicians who cater to right-wing fundamentalists. It's always difficult, if not impossible, to tell the difference between somebody who's merely saying what that group wants them to say and someone who's really in that group. I tend to just take them by their word, and they seem to be all for Jesus. So we're having a lot of problems down here with Planned Parenthood being attacked. Of course, that's going on all over the country, but one of the real war zones on that is the state of Texas, and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic to when I compare both countries. I mean, the United States has a constitution that is actually openly secular, yet there's a high rate of religiosity, I could say, in the United States, as compared to Canada, which actually does have a preamble to addressing a God in the Canadian Constitution, yet Canada is a much more secular country. And I kind of wonder what especially since both countries are essentially cousins, we can almost say.
Yeah.
Right? We often refer to Americans our American cousins. What happened? Why all of a sudden the
Can
turn?
I ask you a question?
Of course.
Canada doesn't have does Canada have an official state religion? Is it
No.
Church of England or something?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. It might because of its ties to England, but I don't think it officially has that. It does have a preamble that actually kind of invokes God at the beginning. But especially 1987, the Supreme Court has always ruled that Canada would be ruling as a secular democracy.
Right. Well, I mean, Britain is nominally secular also, but the state they provide financial support for a particular strain of religion, and my theory has been, and I've gotten some. I'm not. I know that I'm not a scholar of the state of religion in Europe, but apparently some of this is quite on target, and some of it might be a little bit not quite right. But my theory is that what we're seeing in Europe, the reason why it's so secular, is as a result of the government basically supporting one particular denomination. And the reason I suspect that happens is in the United States, it's all religions are on equal footing, right? All denominations are on equal footing.
In theory, right?
it's all about them going out and marketing, right? It's all about going out and trying to draw in as much support as they can from the general public, right? They have to fight for it. In Europe, they can fight for that, but it's unfair, right? All the religions that are not the ones that are fostered by the state governments have a disadvantage, and so they don't get very strong. And then you make anything a government institution, and people I think become naturally a little bit skeptical of it, or they take it less. Not quite sure how to put this.
They rebel against it.
I guess. Well, we'll say it that way for now.
Yeah,
Plus, the official state religion doesn't have to proselytize at all because they're covered by the support of the government. So I think that actually has turned out to be a recipe for creating secularism, if not atheism, in Europe over the decades. Not that I would like to see that happen here, but I think my suspicion is that something like that is the reason why we see so much virulent religion here in the U.S. and not so much in Europe. Unless you could tell me the answer to my question about Canada.
Well, in the aspect
to you.
As compared to the Church of England, no, Canada does not support a particular church. Okay. However, there is public funding sometimes that will go out there for Christian schools and stuff like that. So that's still a fight we're fighting, but it's nowhere near what England has, or Germany has a very similar system as well. But
we have that kind of erosion too. When it comes to government funds going to religion-backed activities. And that is a front on which religions in the U.S. they're constantly pecking away at that, trying to get more and more.
So it's almost like saying the American love affair with free market capitalism has actually kind of merged with the religiosity to create this kind of hybrid, and this is why churches are so powerful right here in the States today.
Yeah, something like that. I wouldn't want to...
It's a hypothesis at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hit that note too hard because, right now, we have a political party that, on the one hand is all about, is all pro-religion and if not anti-Islam, right, pro-Christianity. And also they are pretty much in the hip pocket of corporations. And so you're having those two things at the same time, but I don't personally see how that happened, other than the fact that when you have a lot of money, an easy way to manipulate people is by their religious beliefs, and I think largely the Republican Party in the U.S. is manipulating people by religion rather than.
Yeah, it's an emotional game instead of an intellectual one.
That's also a weird gray area too, because we have quite overtly fundamentalist political candidates too. So it's hard to say. It's somewhere in there. I think something like what's going on.
Yeah, it's very interesting to compare both countries. I think for the longest time, and we've been concerned up here in Canada with the export of things of religiosity, especially creationism. We're seeing it come across the border, and it's becoming a bit more in mainstream, right? I mean, especially here in Abbotsford, which happens to be like the Bible Belt of Canada, but it's nowhere near as bad as what you guys are facing down there in Oklahoma or these states. But you're seeing politicians, especially conservative politicians, start to emulate the Americans and saying things like "God bless Canada" and all that. Although it's usually met with some kind of mockery up here. But have you noticed from your audience that's pretty much worldwide, a lot of people saying that, yeah, it seems like the Americans are exporting creationism out there?
Yeah, sorry. We're doing our best to fight it here and making headway. I mean, when I started attending the meetings of the Atheist Community of Austin back in the 90s, the original group was meeting, huddled together in a corner of this bagel shop, terrified that Christians were going to find out that they were meeting and burst in through the doors and mow them down with machine guns. I mean, it was really that bad at the time, because that was the height of Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell and all that crap. It has gotten way better. I mean, you never, ever used to see the mainstream media cover, like, what's the opinion of atheists about this thing, and now we're getting a little bit of that. So, which is a huge development. So we're moving in the right direction, but yeah, that's being exported. But again, is it because of people who honestly believe that crap, or is it because that it has been demonstrated in the U.S. that kind of a pitch in politics works? You never know, and so I don't care. I just respond to what's being said. I'll take people at their word that they believe whatever words are coming out their mouth and hold them responsible for it.
Jeff, in the past couple of weeks, of course, this interview is going to be broadcasted later during the year, actually at the beginning of the new year. But in the past couple of weeks, we've had a resurgence of gun violence in the States. And actually, the whole world is talking about the mass shootings and everything like that. But at the same time, especially on social media, there seems to be a bit of a resurgence of a bit of a push towards secularity and atheism. I mean, even was it the New York Daily or the New York Times that came out with that page that says, God isn't fixing this. This is much more bold than we've ever seen in the States, and right in front of everybody's face. Does that give you hope? The growth of atheism gives me hope, and when that. We're seeing at the same time, even crazier outbursts of religiosity and religion-based violence, because that's happening at the same time as the steady growth of secularism and atheism, I put that down to desperation on the part of religion. I think religious people are becoming aware that they're on the way out, and this is a last desperate gasp to have their way.
If they can't get it through, the normal legal process, then they'll try to get it by opening fire, which is extremely unfortunate. But that's what nuts do when you put them in a corner.
Tell me how you really feel, Jeff.
I think that's enough for now.
Well, like I said, you guys are on the front lines, and I know another difference between, I guess, Americans and Canadians is it seems much more difficult to mobilize Canadians. I think there's much more apathy on the Canadian side, maybe because we don't see religion as that much of a threat. But like you just said, I've always said that, it's like a wounded animal. Religion is a bit like a wounded animal now. It's becoming more dangerous than ever. So it's... From a guy who's on the front lines, who sees, the daily battles you guys have with, public schools, trying to teach creationism and all that, what advice would you give to mostly apathetic atheists down there, or apatheists as I call them? What advice would Jeff Dee give them and say, about the upcoming storm, I should say?
Well, I mean, if people have chosen to be apathetic, it's kind of impossible to motivate them until they see the consequences of their apathy. Here in the U.S., we still have within the atheist community atheists who complain about the so-called new atheists, who are the guys that are like me, who are outspoken. Right, and we'll speak our mind. There's a great cartoon that goes around Facebook where it's like there's two panels. In the first panel, there's a religious guy pointing a finger at the atheist and saying "shut up," and that's captioned "old atheists." Mm-hmm. And the second picture is the same thing. The religious guy saying "shut up," and the atheist is saying "no," and that's new atheists. Right. There's still people who, they look for any possible excuse to criticize, the Four Horsemen fellas, or guys like me, and even guys like Matt, who are relatively polite in their dealings with Christians. And, I always try to remind them, you can say what you like about how uncomfortable our outspokenness may make you, but we got where we are now when the old atheists were on watch, Yeah. That way, being quiet and silent and just letting nonsense grow and fester and become institutionalized, that's how you get to the place where you have so much of a problem that you have to speak out. So a little bit of speaking out when you see nonsense and you'd like to discourage it from taking root and growing, a little bit of outspokenness might be advised.
That's very good advice, I'll say. Thank you so much, Jeff. Here's the mic. It's all yours, my friend. Go ahead, plug yourself. Be shameless. Go right ahead.
Oh, my. All right. So we've got the Nonprofits audio podcast. We go out live. I think it's 7:30 on every other Wednesday. I'm sorry, not every other. It's the first and third Wednesdays of each month. You can find us at the Atheist Community of Austin website, www.atheist-community.org. There's a link from there to our show page, and there's ways to listen live, and there's ways to listen to the recorded shows, and so on. And the ACA, of course, also does the Atheist Experience video show.
Yes.
And there you go.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Guys out there, I highly recommend the podcast. It's the Nonprofits with Jeff Dee, Russell Glasser, and Dennis LeVay.
Correct.
Jeff, any chance we're going to see you up here in Canada one of these days?
I don't know if somebody wants to invite me up to a Canadian atheist convention. I was there once as a kid on a family vacation.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll try to see.
It was very nice, as I recall.
We'll try to see if we can pull some strings and maybe bring you up here one of these days. You have friends up here, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye now.